How's it going, guys? Chris here. Today we're going to be watching Housing Nightmare. How did Adelaide become one of the most unaffordable cities in Australia? I think they're the third most. House prices in Adelaide are maybe only the fifth most expensive. I'm not exactly sure on the data, but obviously income levels in Adelaide just make it, even harder to be able to afford these properties. Probably the problem is, the proximity to Melbourne and Sydney. Same with Brisbane. However, Brisbane at least has better, income. Because, Brisbane's below them on the affordability scale, even though Brisbane's now the second most expensive city in Australia. If you guys have seen a couple videos before, make sure to subscribe. We hit 1,000 subscribers, so thank you for that, and let's get into it. Full video will be linked below, as always.
South Australians are staring down the barrel of one of the worst housing crises in history.
New data has revealed just how tough Adelaide's property market has become for first-home buyers.
In South Australia's capital city of Adelaide, housing is reshaping the future of this serene part of Australia. University graduates and tradies are being locked out of home ownership for good.
We're saving as much as we can every single week, but it's just not enough. It's not enough to keep up.
Rising costs are putting pressure on young couples trying to start a family.
Well, home ownership was once the ultimate...
That's exactly right. You can't really expect people to have, babies and start a family when they're struggling to be able to afford a place to set roots, and they're struggling to pay rent and all these things, right? So the only strategy, right, to get into your own house at this point is either make insane money, like 200 grand a year, live at home with your parents for a really long time to save up a deposit, or the bank of mum and dad. If there's another one, comment down below. But I think, that's sort of the way it's going. You got to stay at home. That's the easiest one. Hopefully your parents don't charge you board if you stay there for like 2 years, making 100 grand a year, right? And you just be really frugal, don't go out, don't spend anything. Then you'll have a chance of getting a deposit to buy a house. But it's not I guess you got to weigh up the decision of, is the shitty lifestyle for 2 years worth the house? And that changes between people. People have different opinions on that. I personally think if that's something you really want, then go ahead and do that. If it's not something you want, then you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle to be able to get a house deposit, and that's just the way it is.
goal, but it now seems like a distant dream for so many South Australians.
And it's only getting worse. If we look back 20 years, a median house cost about 4 times the typical household income. For every dollar a household earned, about 35 cents would be put towards servicing a mortgage on a median home. Generally, if a household is spending any more than 30% of its income on servicing a mortgage, this is considered mortgage stress. So while housing in Adelaide wasn't exactly affordable then, it was an environment where hard work, diligent savings, and an aspiration for home ownership was enough to realise the Australian dream of home ownership. In Australia, Sydney has long been the least affordable capital city. 20 years ago, the median house in Sydney was priced at 6 times household income and demanded...
Yeah, it's scary to think. All right. All those caveats I said before about staying at home or bank mum and dad, all of them are valid, except for if you live in Sydney. Sydney is just insane, right? Unless you're earning insane money. But the main problem is even it's hard to get the deposit, but then a lot of people don't understand actually being able to service the mortgage of 45% of your income. That is not sustainable. That is ridiculous. You have to do that for 30 years, right? In that time, hopefully you get some pay rises, and that percentage of your income going towards your mortgage will actually go down. However, you look at the price of groceries and all those things, so it won't really, even though you might be making more, you won't be able to pay off your mortgage any faster because everything else is more expensive. So that's the problem. Even if you can afford the deposit to get into a house, you might not be able to service the mortgage without putting yourself on financial stress. And that's like in Sydney, it's unrealistic now. It's unrealistic for anyone really to get into the market unless you are making bank, and there has to be two incomes making bank. It can't just be one income making, you know, 200 grand a year.
45 cents on every dollar earned at the household level to service mortgage repayments. Comparatively, Adelaide was affordable and offered home buyers and renters better value for money. Not long ago, Adelaide shone as Australia's hidden gem. But something has changed. Housing affordability, especially in recent years, has hit crisis point. House prices have skyrocketed, but South Australian incomes haven't kept up.
And that's the same problem everywhere in Australia, right? Incomes just have not kept up with anything in any part of the world. Well, world even, yeah. Like everywhere's sort of facing the same problem, except Australia does seem to be the extreme case. Like a lot of places are starting to see housing prices come down and, you know, actually become more affordable because their incomes are remaining the same, assuming they haven't lost their job. However, in Australia, the government does not want to see house prices come down. Like they've literally said it on the media, right? That they don't want to see house prices come down. In Queensland, they're doing a shared equity scheme of, you know, buying 30% of your house for you. So the government's now buying houses for people. In that case, you know, propping up the housing market to succeed even further. And I saw one of your comments about, you know, if they buy 30% of your house, so they own like one of the bedrooms. So, you know, can they shove someone into that house when, you know, there's a homeless crisis, which is starting to be the case. You know, many people are working full-time hours and becoming homeless. I've made a video on that already, and if you guys haven't seen that, make sure to check it out on my channel. But yeah, it's getting ridiculous.
People are paying more money for the same roof over their head. Today in Adelaide, the average household will now have to spend 56% of income on servicing a mortgage on a median home. This is almost 9 times household income. In Sydney, it's 62% and almost 10 times household income. Adelaide has astonishingly nearly closed the gap on Sydney. Demographia's 2025 International Housing Affordability Report.
And it's funny because, like, at least Sydney's, you know, a global city, and, you know, the jobs there pay a bit more. And there's something about Sydney, you know, being the capital. Well, it's not the capital, but it's the biggest city in Australia. While Adelaide is, you know, maybe it's got the lifestyle. I haven't been to Adelaide. Let me know below. Would you rather live in Sydney or Adelaide? At this point, both are extremely unaffordable and not worth it. But yeah, that's the problem. Like, if you want to be able to afford a house, you have to be doing side hustles, and you can't be earning anywhere near the median income. You have to be earning way more to be even thinking about buying a house, because, you know, 60% of your gross income is disgusting. Like, that is not feasible. A bank, I don't even think, would loan that to people. Potentially they would, but they would need like guarantors from parents and whatever. And a lot of us don't have that safety net or that backing. So it's not fair, but it is what it is. And yeah, like, the only way out of it is pretty much Australians have to make more, and that would then cause house prices to increase even more. So it's just a never-ending cycle until the bubble pops, if it ever pops. It's hard to believe that it could pop. You know, you look back in like 2008, 2004, people were saying it was going to pop. It still hasn't. So, you know, if you don't get in now, potentially you'll never get in.
Released in May 2025, has ranked Adelaide as the 6th least affordable city in the world, declaring it impossibly unaffordable. Generally, when we think about the least affordable housing markets in the world, we think of major cities like San Francisco, Melbourne, and London. Now today, those cities are more affordable than Adelaide. So what has changed? The simple answer, nothing changed. Year after year, the South Australian government has stood idly by and watched the housing dream deteriorate for aspiring homebuyers. Looking back over just the last 5 years, there has been a housing market boom amidst lower interest rates and households borrowing more. As home buyers across Australia were willing to pay more and take on more debt, Adelaide's lower comparative prices were compelling. and the city experienced a price boom. From 2022 to 2025, the median house price has continued to spiral another 30%, even as interest rates spiked and borrowing costs rose. So as the issue continued to swell, Labor governments at the state and federal level hid behind targets and promises that they said would deliver record-breaking delivery of new properties each year in South Australia. This promise was made in 2023 by state and federal Labor governments and is called the National Housing Accord. It included an initial aspirational target agreed by all parties to build 1.2 million new well-located homes over 5 years from mid-2024. Just a few...
It's a cool, it's cool. They're discussing and building more houses. Cool. That's good to hear. Except, during that time of those 5 years, they'll be bringing in triple the amount of people that they're building houses for. So it doesn't make a difference. It's like a net negative, really. They need to be building way more houses for the amount of people that are coming in to even make a dent in the problem. And you got to look at it like these politicians and whatever, they're greedy. They own houses, they own property. Why would they want to see properties go stagnant or even go down in price? Like that hurts their bottom line, their pocket. They're not going to take money out of their own pocket. So that's the problem. Australia's been set up this way and it's not going to change anytime soon.
Months in, an Urban Development Institute of Australia report has found that SA was on track to fall short of the National Housing Accord target by 34%. Prices...
And that's exactly right. It's not just South Australia, but every state is falling behind on building new houses. So, their projected amount is not enough, and they're not even able to keep up with their projected amount. So, good luck.
Continue to soar, and at this rate, it would seem that there is no end in sight as population pressures mount and new supply fails to materialise. However, incomes in Adelaide continue to be low in comparison to other states relative to house prices. In fact, on a household income basis per person, South Australia is the poorest state in the country. South Australia's housing crisis has transformed Adelaide from Australia's best kept secret into the 6th least affordable city in the world. A combination of government inaction, surging housing demand, a failure to deliver on government housing has left young people, families and first-time buyers locked out of the market, with many leaving the state for better opportunities. As prices continue to spiral, the dream of home ownership is slipping further out of reach. With affordability deteriorating, are people interstate and overseas still looking at Adelaide as the livable and affordable destination to raise a family? Can young people afford to move out of their family home? Can South Australians keep up with the rising cost of putting a roof over their head?
Yeah, it's a tough situation, right? And the problem is, I think a lot of people, they believe the government's there to help them and fix their problems for them, but the government's self-interest and they want to fix the problem they have, which is they don't have enough money. So they're not going to let house prices come down. They're just going to keep them pumping and going up. So, yeah, if you want to get into a house, sadly, you got to be working fucking insane hours, doing 60 hours a week, have side hustles, have second jobs, have third jobs, and more than you ever have. And yet it still might not be enough. And that's the sad truth. Comment down below what you guys think. Make sure to subscribe and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Later.